Good morning. We have a guest speaker. And his time is very limited because he's starting prayer services a little later than us. He's in Florida. I'm from Florida. They sleep in a little bit. This Tuesday, we mark a very special day. We mark 30 years. 30 years. The yarhtzeit of the Rebbe. We've spoken about the Rebbe many, many times, and the great impact that the Rebbe had on the world. On a personal note, the Rebbe, I had a very special connection to the Rebbe. Both my grandfathers were very close to the Rebbe. My grandfather, Rabbi Chadikov, we mentioned in the past, was the Rebbe's personal assistant. I took advantage of that. I was always very, very close to the Rebbe. My other grandfather, Rabbi Kramer, who escaped the Holocaust, and literally the Rebbe adopted my grandfather as his own child. So I'm pleased at this time to introduce my cousin. We share the same grandfather, Rabbi Kramer. I asked my cousin to share two first-hand stories. Yesterday, I spoke for a group about the Rebbe, group here in Merrick, and I repeated a story. Some of you may have heard it in the past about the impact that the Rebbe had on Viktor Frankl when he was giving up hope. And someone raised their hand and someone said, I want to hear it from Viktor Frankl himself. I like first-hand stories. So here you'll be able to hear a first-hand story from Rabbi Mendy Gutnick, a cousin, close friend of mine, and the Chabad Rabbi, Parkland, Florida. If you're ever there, please go visit him. And here you go, Rabbi Mendy. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time to do your best this morning.
Pleasure. Shimon and Chani, thank you so much for having me. And I'd like to, first of all, say good morning and good chodesh to everybody from very sunny and warm South Florida. And one day, when you decide to retire and come down, look me up and we'll just continue on from Rabbi Shimon and Rebbe and Chani's wonderful care that they've been giving you. By the way, you're very fortunate to have them as shluchim. They are known to be throughout, not just my family, but throughout the world as being one of the most dedicated and devoted and loving and caring shluchim to their communities. So certainly are very fortunate to have them as Rabbi and Rebbe in your community. I'd just like to share a couple of stories which Rabbi Shimon mentioned happened to me personally, but I have to say, in all honesty, I wasn't the personal beneficiary of the story, meaning they didn't happen to me and the Rebbe personally, but I was most affected by both of them. And so by being most affected by it, I certainly have the wherewithal to be able to, and the qualification to share these stories. I also want to share that both of these stories happened after Gimel Tammuz, which is the date the Rebbe passed away 30 years ago from this coming Tuesday. And I think for a lot of us, we feel like, yes, it's nice to hear stories of people from when the Rebbe was alive and many years ago, but the connection that we have today is certainly not the same as it was for those who had the privilege of meeting the Rebbe in person and receiving $1 and a blessing. So both of these stories I want to specifically mention happened after Gimel Tammuz, after the Rebbe passed away. And you might say, well, how did that happen? Well, you'll find out, because I believe from these stories we can be inspired to realize that the relationship and connection that we have with the Rebbe could still be very much strong today, and just as strong as it was before the Rebbe passed away. So the first story goes back to my wedding day, which is almost 25 years ago. And my father-in-law, Rabbi Yossi Biston from Parkland, Florida, I married his daughter, Esti Biston. And at the wedding, we noticed that he was dancing with a particular individual for much longer than anybody else. So I'm his new son-in-law. It was understandable he didn't necessarily dance with me the entire night, but family members started saying, like, you're dancing with this friend very frequently and very often throughout the whole wedding night. And it seemed a little disproportionate. So I went and asked my father-in-law that night. I said, who was this guy that you were dancing with for half an hour, for 45 minutes at a time? So he said, this man's name was Yedidya Hurtenfeld, and he's an old friend from many years ago. He's 25, 30 years older than me. He was close with my father. My father is obviously, he said, passed away and wasn't at the wedding. So he was there. It was very special for me. When I saw him, I wasn't expecting to see him. But then when he shared his story with me, I couldn't stop dancing with him. What was the story that he shared? He said that when I noticed that he was there at the wedding, I said, what are you doing here? Wasn't expecting you. I didn't get an RSVP. I wasn't even sure if I invited you. How come you're here? He said, yeah, I wasn't going to come myself. But the story starts about 25 years earlier when your parents, who I was very close with, shared with me that you had been married for some time and was not able to have a child. You had been married for 5 years and you weren't blessed with children. So I said, you know what? I cared about your father so much. I wanted to go to the Rebbe to get a bracha for your son, that he should have a child. And so I knew that I couldn't make an appointment. I had to just stop the Rebbe when he was on his way to his car, leaving 770 or on his way into 770. So I did that. And I'm not a Chabad Chassid. I'm not a Lubavitcher. So I had a little bit more chutzpah than maybe some of the other Chassidim who were very cautious about their interactions with the Rebbe. So as the Rebbe came out from 770 one morning, I stopped him on the way to his car and I said, Rebbe, I have to ask a bracha for a very special friend of mine whose child, Yosef Yitzchak ben Svetel Gittel, and his wife, Beila Rachel bas Tevara Leah, have not been blessed with children. Please give them a bracha that they should have a child. They've been married for 5 years. And so the Rebbe said, I already gave a bracha, but I will give another bracha, and I will tell you that you and me together will dance by their first child's wedding. So this Yedidya Hurtenfeld said, I was very taken aback at the time, 25 years ago, that the Rebbe would say that. The Rebbe doesn't go to people's weddings, and certainly doesn't, doesn't make those kind of commitments. So he asked again. He said, the Rebbe's going to be there at the wedding? The Rebbe said, yes, I will be there together with you, and we will dance together at their first child's wedding. He said, wow, okay, that's a bracha. I accept. Thank you so much. And he finished the interaction with the Rebbe. Not long after did my father-in-law have their first child, my wife, Esti, and it was now 23 or 24 years later that was now her getting close to her wedding day to me. And the truth is, he said, I had forgotten about the story. I knew the Rebbe gave a bracha, but I'd forgotten the specifics about dancing at the wedding, even though it was such an important point. But we grew apart. I hadn't spoken to you in probably 15, 20 years. I hadn't thought about it until the Friday night, a week ago. I had a dream, and the Rebbe came to me in a dream. And it was very unusual. I never dream about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Rebbe came to me in a dream and said, no, what about our deal that we had? That we would dance together at their first child's wedding. Are you coming to the wedding? And so he said, I don't know. I wasn't planning on going to the wedding. And he wasn't really sure in the dream what to answer. So a few nights later, he had the dream again, and the Rebbe came and said, no, what's going on? Are you going to the wedding? We have a deal. So now it's a second dream. He's getting a little flustered. In the dream, he remembers saying, I don't have the financial means in which to go. He wasn't doing very well financially, and he said, I didn't make any arrangements because I don't have the financial means to go. And with that, he woke up. But he said the second dream rattled him because he realized it was not just his imagination, not just a thought. It was a message coming from on high. So even though he told the Rebbe he didn't have the financial means, he'd already decided in his mind he was going to make an effort to go. And he ends up going into work the next day, and he worked in a travel agency. And the boss said to him, you don't look like you're that calm. You look a little stressed about something. So he said, yeah, things have been a little challenging for me lately. So his boss said to him, why don't you go on a vacation to Florida? You need a few days, take a few days, go on a vacation to Florida. It happens to be my wedding was in Florida. So he says, wow. He says, that's amazing that you would say take a vacation to Florida for a few days because I was thinking about going to a wedding there. Anyways, he says, great, go to the wedding. And he says, I'm going to give you an additional $180 to give to the chassid and kala, to the bride and groom, that you could give them as a gift when you go to the wedding and you go on vacation there. So he said, that's it. He told his wife he's going to go to the wedding, even though he's probably going to shock, and it's going to be a little unexpected for Rabbi Biston, but he'll go to the wedding. So he shows up at the wedding, and he tells my father-in-law this story at the beginning of the reception, right before they started dancing. He said, "So I came to the wedding, and I wasn't planning to, but the Rebbe told me I should go because we have a deal that you and I and him are going to dance together at their first child's wedding. So here I am." So my father-in-law heard the story right then and there. He said, "How can I not dance with this man? Because I know that if I dance with him, I'm dancing with the Rebbe as well. That the Rebbe said, I promise I'm going to be there." This is what he told him. So by dancing with him, I know the Rebbe is dancing together with me at this wedding as well. And little did he know that the story would happen when he gave the bracha, that it would be after Gimel Tammuz, and that obviously the Rebbe is not tied and limited to the physical form any longer. And so the Rebbe is certainly who is there at many simchas of his Hasidim, but here it was a guarantee that he would be there to dance. And so my father-in-law danced with this man for 45 minutes, and just to prove that the story was 100% accurate, I received the gift of $180 from this man as well, from a man that I never met before, and my father-in-law wasn't even that close with, and he was so surprised that he came, but he came because he was dancing and bringing along the Rebbe with him to dance. So that was the first story we have. So again, the story didn't happen to me, but the story was, I was a great beneficiary of the story to know that the Rebbe danced at my wedding. The second story was a little bit more personal, happened more recently. So I underwent a very mysterious illness about 8 years ago, and it was not able to be diagnosed. I had symptoms that caused terrible, terrible headaches, so much so that I almost had paralysis from those headaches. It caused partial blindness. It caused me to go somewhat deaf, and there was no determination or diagnosis for it, and it was progressively getting worse and worse. And I was basically bedridden. I lost my short-term memory. I lost my, a lot of things, ability to walk. It was really very, very debilitating. And it started off just as headaches, and they kept seeing there was ischemic activity in my brain, but they had no idea what was causing it. And to make a long story short, as they had no diagnosis for it whatsoever, they basically just gave me medication that would help treat the symptoms, but not the actual issue. And this was, I just had a new baby. I have 7 children, Kanei Nahara. And it was something that was causing myself and my wife obviously tremendous aggravation and grief, that this is how it's just going to go for me, that it's just going to get worse and worse. They called it cerebral vasculitis, but that wasn't what it was. Anyway, so it came to be a day on Yud Tes Kislev, which is a great day in the Hasidic calendar, that is a very special day to connect to the Rebbe, to ask for a blessing, and to be immersed in spiritual activity. So at that particular day, my wife decided we were going to pour our hearts out to the Rebbe in a letter that we would write ourselves, asking for a blessing. At least we should have a diagnosis. At least we should know what the treatment should be and how I should improve, because it was very, very difficult. And so we poured our heart out. We wrote a lot of personal things, like, "Rebbe, we're doing our shlichus here in Florida for you. This is not something that we're doing for ourselves. We're not asking for a personal refuah that I should be better just because I want good health and I want to live a long life. But we're doing it because we're on a mission for you. So you need to give us a special blessing and implore by God that this, I should have a recovery." And we wrote this out, and it was on the day of Yud Tes Kislev itself, and it was getting late in the afternoon. And I told my wife, I said, "I think we have to go and fax this. We have to fax it to the Rebbe's Ohel, because if we do it any other way, it's going to arrive after Yud Tes Kislev, after the day is over already." So who has a fax machine in their homes nowadays? Nobody. So I said to Esty, "I think you should go to Office Depot, because they have a fax machine there, and just bring it to Office Depot and send the fax from there." So she said, "Okay." Now at this point, I had it basically day to day, things were getting worse, and it wasn't like it was stable at all. So at that point, I had lost about 60% of my vision, about 75% of my hearing. I wasn't able to walk steadily. I was basically confined to bed. I couldn't feel half of my body, and even talking was very, very difficult. And so we knew time was of essence. And so she went that day. She went, and she was very flustered, but she went to Office Depot, and she didn't look She didn't look that great. She didn't look like herself. And she walked into Office Depot, and as soon as she walked in, there was a man behind the counter at the copy center, a Haitian. Um, it was not Jewish at all. And he said to her, "Is there everything okay? Can I help you with anything?" So she said, "Yeah, I need to send a fax. Can you help me send a fax?" So he said, "You're sending a fax? You look very bothered. You look very disturbed. Are you Jewish, by the way?" And she said, "Yes, yes, I am Jewish." So he said, "Well, I think I know where you're sending your fax to, and I think I know that you need a special blessing." So she's like taken aback and said, where do you know I'm sending my fax to?" She said, "I know that you're sending your fax to a very great rabbi and his gravesite in Queens, New York." So Estie's like, "What? What are you talking about? How would you possibly know I'm sending this fax to this great rabbi?" So he said, "Let me tell you, are you sending that?" So she said, "Yes, I am. My husband is very sick and I need a blessing and I'm sending this fax to this rabbi." He opens his phone and he shows on his phone, he's got the fax number to the Rebbe's Ohel. And he says, "I send my faxes there when I have a problem in my life. And that's why I saw right away you're Jewish. I figured you would probably have a problem. You're sending your fax to him too." So Esty said, "What? Why are you sending fax? How did this happen?" So he said, let me tell you something. My daughter was very, very sick. She had a brain tumor, and they told her that she was going to never be able to walk again, never be able to talk again, never be able to, basically she had a death sentence and she wasn't going to recover from this. And I was very bothered by it. And I met a man when I was in Office Depot in North Miami Beach. I was working there. A man came in and I told him my problems with my daughter. And he said, "Why don't you send a fax to this rabbi in the Ohel? It's worth a shot. He gives blessings. He could help you." So he said, "What have I got to lose?" So he wrote this whole beautiful letter. He faxed it to the Rebbe's Ohel. And he said, a few days later, doctor said, "We have a possibility of doing a surgery that could save your daughter." And sure enough, long story short, my daughter was cured. She is now well. She's now healthy. She has maybe a few little residual deficits, but she's in college now. She's doing amazing. She's doing well. And I know it was because of the blessing from the rabbi at the Ohel. So I saved the number, and every time I have any issues, good news or bad news, I send the fax into the Ohel. And I was so excited to see you because you look Jewish. She was wearing a tichel. She looked more modest, my wife. She said, "You look Jewish. You reminded me of somebody who would be a follower of this rabbi." Because I did research and I found out that he has a large following of many religious Jews that all over the world, especially in America. And so when I saw you come in, I realized right away that must be where you're sending your fax as well. Because if it works for me, it works for you. But then he turned to my wife and said, "But I don't understand something. I don't understand why you're so worried, why you look so pained. He's your rabbi. You have much more reason to believe that he's going to send blessings to you and your husband, that you're going to be okay. Me, I'm not even part of your group. I'm not even Jewish. And he already blessed me that my daughter was okay. So certainly he's going to bless your husband that he's okay. What are you so worried? Do I have more faith than you? I think I have more faith than you. What are you doing?" So he said to her, "I guarantee you that we're going to send this fax today, and the Rebbe is going to bless your husband, that he's going to be fine, he's going to be okay. All the worries that you have are going to be dismissed. It's not going to be anything. I'm telling you, I kind of have more faith than you." And he said, "You also have, I learned my Bible, you also have the power like Moses to demand from God and to say it has to be good. And so you have to write in this fax that it has to be good and the Rebbe has to give you this blessing." And he basically gave my wife this pep talk and implored her and told her that the Rebbe is going to absolutely give this blessing. So when Esty came home, she came right into the room and she said, "Mendy, I'm telling you, we got our bracha from the Rebbe. You're going to be okay." It came in the strangest way, but I'm telling you, the Rebbe sent his emissary to tell us that it's going to be okay for you. 2 days later, there was a doctor from Cleveland that we found out is the only doctor that is able to deal with the symptoms that I had, specific 3 symptoms that I had that was very unique. And he was able to diagnose me, and he was able to come on board and give me the treatment that I needed. It got worse for a few weeks before it got better. But 2 days after the letter to the Ohel, I got the diagnosis and I was able to begin treatment. And it's actually an amazing end of the story because once they discovered what I had, they were able to treat me with the proper treatments. I was able to recover without any deficits whatsoever. I got my hearing back. I got my vision back. My wife still might say I have some short-term memory loss from time to time, but who doesn't, right? That's you forget where you put things here and there. But it's just that maybe that's just a little reminder that I have that how fortunate and how blessed I was to receive this bracha and this blessing from the Rebbe through unexpected sources. And I think that the message is that harbe shluchim lamakom, that the Rebbe himself physically might not be here face to face with us to give us the blessing, but the Rebbe is very involved in all those that seek his blessing, to be able to give it through many different interesting sources and emissaries and shluchim that present themselves in our lives, that are the signs and the miracle workers that will be worked through them to give us the blessings that we need. And now I'm able to help many other people who have this same illness. Unfortunately, it does affect, there's only 400 people in the world that have it. It's a crazy rare illness. It's called Susak syndrome, but I was able to help other people who have it. And I'm sort of like the poster child of the story because I was able to have a full recovery. Not everybody is as fortunate as me, but I give them the opportunity to also seek a blessing for it with the Rebbe and to have the same faith that I had, and God willing, they should also have the blessings that I had as well. So those are just two of the stories that happened that I was beneficiary of. Neither of them happened to me directly, but I can vouch. I can vouch and testify to both of them being 100% accurate because I'm married to the woman who we danced with the Rebbe at our wedding, and I'm here with the Rebbe's blessings in good health because of the bracha that my wife received.
Thank you, Rebbe Mendy. I
Thank
appreciate
you all
you.
so much. And have a good Chodesh. I have to run. My congregation is waiting for me to start the minyan for them. So I'll head over there to do that. And this is my son right here, just to say hello. Shral Dave Bear.
Hi.
He was a week old when I got the illness I was talking about. So it was Baruch Hashem.
Rabbi Mendy, tell your congregation they're lucky to get another 40 minutes of sleep. Sleep in.
No, I start at 9 o'clock. They're all waiting for me in the show.
You're late.
I'm late. But the rabbi slept in. What can you do?
Thank you so much.
All right. You're very welcome. Good Chodesh. Be well.
Good Chodesh. Thank you to you as well. So today is Rosh Chodesh, the first day of the month. Today, one